What's up, guys? I'm Seth.
And I'm Lauren, and today we're in San Luis Potosi city in Mexico. And in this video, we're going to compare safety between Mexico and the United States in a couple different safety categories. Now, disclaimer before we get started, we're not saying that either country is completely safe or completely dangerous, because safety is relative and bad things can happen anywhere. So we just wanted to mention that before the video gets started.
Exactly, yeah, and we've been here in Mexico living and traveling throughout the country more than 5 months now. We've been to 16 different states. Now, total, we spent more than 6 months in this country and a lifetime in the United States. Now, obviously, that's not enough to be an expert in Mexico safety versus someone who's lived here their whole life, but it definitely is enough to know that this country gets way too bad of a rep for safety and danger, especially when compared to the United States. Like a lot of Americans will say, a lot of people around the world, but especially Americans will say like Mexico is completely should be avoided, it's too dangerous to visit.
Yeah, or you should stay inside of your resort.
Yeah, that's a popular one. Stay at the resort, don't leave the resort, and things like that. So we believe that's totally a stigma that's not true. It's probably led on by Hollywood, the media, and just word of mouth that's outdated. There's so many parts of this country that are very, very safe, and even categories here that make it a lot safer than other categories in the United States. So today we're gonna break those categories down for you guys and try to remove that negative stigma a little bit and kind of reveal the what we believe is the reality and truth of safety in Mexico versus the United States.
Yep, so let's get into it. Bienvenidos to our humble abode. Little tiny house here in San Luis Potosi. Has all the essentials.
Legit does have everything you really need. See if we can get this lighting right, and then we'll sit in here and talk about this because we don't want to waste you guys' time with all the distractions out in the street. All right, so let's get one thing out of the way right off the bat. We know that Mexico has a lot of issues, has among the highest homicide rates in the world. You know, a lot of the cities in Mexico dominate the list of most dangerous in the world by homicide rate and things like that. If you look directly at murder rates, it's not even close statistically. Mexico has a much, much higher murder rate than the US. I think it's just over 19 per 100,000 residents homicide rate, whereas the US is just over 5 per 100,000. But we still believe that it's actually easier to protect yourself and your family and to stay safe here than it is in the United States. And we also believe because of those numbers and statistics, it gets a very unfair understanding of what that really means as far as traveling here and the areas that are safe here and things like that. So we're gonna try to break that down for you guys and why we believe that.
Yeah, we definitely wanna touch on the misconceptions because that's a big part of why a lot of people think Mexico is unsafe for traveling or to come and live.
So a couple things to keep in mind when it comes to these homicide rates that when you're looking at a list and you're seeing, oh, that one's in Mexico, that one's in Mexico, it must be a dangerous country. A lot of this trafficking is concentrated in certain areas where most of it goes on. You know, there's specific states, some of them are border states, some of them are on the west coast. They're dotted here and there where a lot of that activity goes on. And these cities that are the highest in the ranking are often smaller cities by population that are right in the middle of these conflict zones between, you know, cartels and drug gangs. So these numbers, because the population is not as big and it's such a high concentrated area for drug trafficking, the numbers are way up with homicide rates, and that drives them to the very top of the list on a worldwide scale.
Yeah, and so when you see this information on a website page, you calculate that to be the whole entire country. Yeah. When in reality, there are a lot of states in Mexico that are very safe, especially if you're just coming as a tourist. Tourists are the less likely to be targeted. So there was a study in June 2017 to June 2018 where they looked at the amount of American tourists who came in and the amount...
35 million.
Yeah, it was like 35 million tourists came in from the US, and from those, 238
died in Mexico.
And not all from homicide.
No, that's drowning, traffic accidents.
Yeah, anything nature related. They could have like on a hike or something. So
you're talking about such a small percentage it wouldn't even show up.
Such a small percentage.
Now that's for a few reasons. They're visiting safer areas, but also the crime that happens here is 99% of the time is not targeting tourists or your everyday people. It's, you know, police versus gang members and gang members versus gang members and things like that. It's very targeted stuff. Now you can get caught in the crossfire, of course, of those fights in the wrong areas, but that can also happen in the United States.
Yeah, that could happen in the United States, and it does happen.
Yeah, with many drug gangs in the United States.
Matter of fact, one of the main reasons why we wanted to make this video is just talking about the random things that can happen to you in the U.S. versus here. That's why earlier in the video we said it might even be a safer place to raise your family here in Mexico, because doing everyday activities in the U.S. could result in something bad happening. For example, going to the nail salon, grocery shopping, sending your children to an elementary school. Like all of these mass shootings, they're all very random.
Yes.
They can happen in any state, and we have no clue when the next one is going to happen or where it's going to happen.
Yeah, so it's very spread out across the United States. They happen randomly, and you cannot really predict it or prevent it or keep yourself safe from it. That's a huge thing. Like whether you're involved in crime or drugs or not, in the United States, you could very much be targeted by a random mass shooting. So yeah, like she was saying, whether it's the movie theater, the mall, a festival, a concert, anything can happen at any time with the mass shootings, which have been increasing recently in the United States. Whereas here, if you're not involved in criminal activity or not involved in drugs and stay out of certain areas, your chances of being the victim of a crime drastically decrease. Now, that's also true in the United States. You do have areas that are more prone to crime than others, but it is more spread out, and we definitely have more random crimes, like random, seemingly regular everyday people killing other regular everyday people for various causes, like even road rage incidents.
Yes, there have been road rage incidents where, like you piss somebody off on the road, and then the next thing you know, they're pulling a gun out on you. So
yeah, it definitely has spiraled out of control in the United States to where everyday people are more often targeted for various reasons, whether it's a hate crime, race-related, or just somebody who's messed up and wants to kill themselves and bring 20 other people with them. Of course, the statistics are still very low, and we're not calling the U.S. dangerous.
Yeah.
It still makes it more random to where you can't really make certain moves to protect your family from that if it were to happen in your town or to you. But we also have a lot of drug use, which you got to think it comes from, here you have the drug trafficking, and it's being trafficked to the United States.
Yeah, so our consumerism is like a big part of the problem that is in the border states in Mexico, is the drug consumerism of the U.S. That goes on to say that we do have a big epidemic in the U.S. of drug use. Yeah,
and that kind of leads to what we call more of a wild card violence. With the drug use happening in the U.S., you have people that are, addicted, which is its own mental illness, and they'll do anything for the next fix, desperation. You have people that are, crazy off of their high. So you have more wild card incidents where you're not sure if someone is, hopped up on something. We have been in Mexico total for more than 6 months, more than 5 months this trip now, and had absolutely no issues at all.
Yeah, we haven't had any issues, and versus like some of our other trips that we've taken, like together on our first night in Portugal, our rental car was busted into. Some of our things were stolen out of the car. So that's on our first night there.
I was also in Paris backpacking with my brother. On our third or fourth night there, our laptop was actually stolen off of us in a McDonald's. And then I was also robbed in Pennsylvania. So it can happen anywhere. But so far, knock on wood, nothing's happened here in Mexico to us in more than 6 months of travel.
Yep.
So that alone is impressive. And we talked to other people who have a similar experience. They were told not to come here. They were told to stay in their resort. More than 1 million Americans are living here. Many who we talked to have had overall nothing happen here that wouldn't happen in the United States or couldn't happen in the United States. Or they've had no incidents at all.
Yeah, and I'm sure they've definitely experienced telling people their plans in the United States, and then, their response being, don't do that, it's dangerous, it's not safe to go down there, safe to live there. So we get that a lot too, and it's just like, it is a very big misconception, especially depending on where you're going in Mexico, to kind of say, oh, that the whole country's unsafe. But in reality, down here, we haven't experienced anything like that.
We have many safe states here, like some of Mexico's safest states: Yucatan, Tlaxcala, Campeche, Chiapas. And Yucatan itself has a murder rate that hovers around 3, which is lower than the US by a long shot as a whole. So there's very many safe areas here. I would say the majority of Mexico is safe for travel. Everywhere we've gone so far, we felt very safe. And there's certain areas that you should avoid, but even those states, like even states in Mexico that have been given a rating by the US State Department, level 4, do not travel, many people travel to with no problems. Like Taxco Guerrero is a popular tourist spot.
Yeah, everybody loves to go there when they're in that area, and then that's a big tourist hub. So you have a lot of people going into a reconsider travel state or do not travel to state with no problems at all because it's a tourist location or something like that. So, and the only reason we bring that up is because it's not like these areas that you really probably should avoid are like all out war zones all the time. A lot of times different media and movies will lead us to believe that it's just a war zone as soon as you cross the border, like the movie Sicario. Yeah.
Good luck. Luck doesn't live on this side of the border.
In 2018, we actually crossed the border from San Diego to Tijuana, and in 2018, Tijuana was Mexico's most dangerous city for that year.
Actually, it was the world's most dangerous city for that year by homicide rate.
By homicide rate. It was the world's most dangerous city that year for homicide rate, and we were walking around like tourists. We had like a really great time in Tijuana, and that was in the city, not at the beach.
I think this year, Cabo San Lucas has actually surpassed Tijuana and is one of the most dangerous cities in the world by homicide rate. But it gets, out of those 35 million Americans that are coming down to visit Mexico every year, or some years, it gets a huge percentage of that number. Millions of Americans visit Cabo San Lucas.
Yeah.
So the fact that is the most dangerous city, and that Tijuana was the most dangerous city, that also is a popular tourist spot for Americans. It shows you that even these areas where the violence is highly concentrated, Americans visit and foreigners visit, Europeans, and have no major issues there either. And one of the reasons those misconceptions bother us so much is that Mexican people are generally very warm and friendly, welcoming people. They're very welcoming and friendly to foreigners. And you're going to feel safe in the vast majority of Mexico as a foreigner here.
And I just want to highlight in our personal experience that we have felt safer in a lot of the cities here, like bigger cities, than we do traveling into U.S. cities.
Yeah.
A few reasons, but to touch on one, like the street lights are extremely bright in a lot of the cities that we visited here. So, especially like Mérida, Yucatan, San Miguel de Allende, they have like the street lights light up the night. It almost feels like it's daytime.
In general, we just feel so much safer walking around after dark in the cities here in Mexico versus cities in the United States as a general rule.
Yeah.
So again, we're not trying to discredit the bad things that do happen here in Mexico. Of course, always take the precautions. Don't go too far the other way to where, we heard some YouTubers say it was safe here, so we're just going to waltz down the road at 2 a.m. drunk, loudly speaking English with the camera dangling. You can become a victim very quickly anywhere, especially when traveling, really.
Yeah.
Because you might stand out as someone who doesn't know the area or have a good understanding of life there.
It's definitely good to be aware of it on both ends. Yeah. You can run and face any type of issue anywhere. So we're not trying to discredit or say that one place is safer than the other. So the next thing we want to discuss is transportation, road fatalities, car accidents, things like that. Now, both Mexico and the US rank on the lower end of the scale as far as the world goes for car fatalities and car accidents. It is vastly different between both countries as far as road conditions and landscape and things like that.
Yeah, so according to worldlifeexpectancy.com, Mexico is ranked at 115 for traffic fatalities, with 12.2 people dying from a traffic-related incident per 100,000. And the U.S. is just under that at 120, just slightly better, with 10.9 people per 100,000. So both are on the lower end. So statistically, Mexico is slightly less safe on the highways than the United States. Now, but that's actually sort of impressive because Mexico, you have a lot of mountains, for one thing. That's one thing to keep in mind. So it's very mountainous.
A lot of the roads are very curvy, switchbacks, things like that.
Yeah, instantly driving in the mountains is more dangerous, anywhere, any country in the world. So that leads to things like fog, worse road conditions. And a lot of buses and things will not have seat belts here. So there are a lot of factors that go into that, but in a way, we think that's sort of a plus, and why those numbers are still so close, even with worse road conditions, is because the drivers here really pay attention because they have to.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, you have speed bumps that are called topes here in Mexico.
Which are everywhere. The topes here are like in abundance. Sometimes they're spaced out, but usually like they'll have them up next to each other, so you can't even like accelerate that much without hitting another tope.
Yeah, and many times they're not marked or painted, so that makes them dangerous right there. And then you have, again, potholes, and you have, some crazy traffic in certain areas and the windy roads. So the drivers have to stay very focused, very alert, and pay a lot of attention to the roads. Whereas in the United States, you have distracted drivers. It's like the societal norm to text and drive.
Or like change the song,
Yeah.
anything like that, like mess with the radio. So
Yeah.
like there are a lot of distracted drivers in the US because you kind of know what to expect. You're either on a highway or a well-paved back road. But here it's like the drivers, you can tell they have to constantly be looking in front of them, because if you have an unmarked tope, you're gonna ruin your car.
Yeah. Whereas in the United States, it's easier to just be on autopilot, which can lead to more random accidents, big pileups, or just a dangerous situation when you don't know if the person coming the other way on the highway is texting or not paying attention. There are a couple tips we have to stay safe in Mexico. A lot of people will say don't drive at night. And we actually have to concur that it's a bad idea to drive at night.
Yeah, definitely. Because if you don't know the roads, or if you're not on like one of the well-marked highways, you're going to run into a lot of unmarked topes. Number one, it's going to take you forever to get to your destination.
Yeah, you have to go slow, yeah.
Because you're not going to want to speed up. But number two, you could potentially ruin your car or the rental car you're in by not realizing there's a tope and you hit it way too fast.
Yeah. Bad visibility, and there's lots of windy roads, and we've seen some issues with livestock in the road in more rural areas. So driving in the United States is definitely safer at night. If you are going to drive at night in Mexico, one of our tips to stay safe is, for one, go slow if you're on back roads, but two, stick to the tolled highways. They're like called quotas.
Yeah.
Quotas.
But
we'll put it on the screen. But
yeah.
The highways with tolls are generally so much safer, and even driving at night on those is not a big deal. One thing, though, that could potentially put you at more risk here in Mexico that we've talked about before is that, in general, you're a lot less traceable. So if you're not using a card as much, or like us, we'll hop on a pasajero, which is essentially just a pickup truck that you just hop on, you pay 20, 40 pesos, and
takes you to a new destination.
Yeah.
Drops you off, no questions asked.
Yeah.
A lot of the hotels or hostels that you can just walk in and book don't really ask for ID or passport. Now, a few of them have, but
many of them don't.
But many of them don't, yeah.
Even book accommodation without giving your info, or just get, there's so many different means of transportation. There's 10 ways to get to anywhere here. So whereas in the United States, there's like usually a paper trail for almost everything. Mm-hmm. So if someone did want to attack you or did want to harm you here, they could potentially get away with it easier. It's good to either find a way to leave some type of paper trail, or just keep your family updated on where you're at and things like that, and you're more traceable if something were to happen. Yeah. But that's just something we've noticed. Like, we'll be out in the jungle somewhere and we'll realize, like, no one knows where we're at.
Yeah.
There's no way to track how we got here. So if we were to even fall off the edge of a cliff and break our legs, we'd be screwed. Yeah,
there have been times when we were like, when's the last time we spoke to our family?
Yeah.
And we're like deep in the jungle of Chiapas.
Yeah.
Like, so, nobody knows.
And it's easy to get out there. But, you hop on a pasajero or a colectivo, which is essentially a pasajero but in a van. And it's the same concept. You just flag them down and jump on, which is really, really awesome as far as being able to get around without a car.
Yeah.
But it can make you untraceable. So like, even if you get lost in the woods or things like that, no one will have any idea where you're at. So that's just a little safety tip. So another topic we're touching on here is police. A lot of people are afraid of Mexico for the corrupt police. It has a big reputation for corruption. And personally, we're not really going to speak on that too much because
we haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
Really that much. So.
Yeah, we don't want to discredit people who do go through that. And
Exactly.
we haven't experienced or had any issues with the police here. But obviously, we will point out that the United States has no room to talk in that department. We have a lot of issues with the police there. And one thing we have seen from different people here is that the police in Mexico are not allowed to get as aggressive as they are in the United States, as hands-on. A lot of incidents in the U.S. will have police escalating situations instead of de-escalating. We would say just Americans who are talking about police corruption in Mexico, focus on your own house first, before you come judging.
Before you move across borders.
Yeah, before you critique the police situation here, let's deal with that, because that is another issue. Now, of course, that's not everyone or across the board by any means.
And neither is it here.
A lot of disclaimers here, but in this kind of video, you really do have to do a lot of disclaimers. Again, we're not discrediting any of the bad things that go on here or people's experiences here. We're just trying to kind of make it more level and balanced, because you do have so many Americans who have the wrong information that are saying Mexico is just unsafe and that's just how it is, when in reality it's not true. And you need to be fair about these things and look at the statistics on both sides. Nothing really is black and white. There's always things in different ways where the U.S. is for sure safer than Mexico. There's ways where Mexico is safer than the U.S.
Yeah, it was just our main point of focus for the video was just to address the misconception.
Yeah. Which in a lot of ways is why we've sort of focused more on the tourist aspect and things like that, because we're not experts on living here our whole lives. We're not experts on growing up here or living in, you know, every part of the country. So
yeah, we're living in the more dangerous states.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to touch on it as if we were tourists. I mean, we have been living here, but, you know, not that long. So we're definitely not experts in the subject.
yeah, so from a more tourist standpoint, for people telling us, you know, it's dangerous to come to Mexico, when we know millions of people come here with no problems at all, we just want to shatter that misconception and that negative stigma that really shouldn't exist for this country.
Now, we do want to throw in there that I believe the majority of the world is safe to travel. You have everyday people living in their home country who aren't out to get you or aren't out to cause anyone harm. Personally, I believe the majority of the world, the people are good. When you see all these news stories of different countries or even things that happen in the US, it's like you can't just write the whole country off.
Exactly.
That's not everyday people who you're going to run into at the bar and make friends with. That's just not how it is. So
Yeah.
you can be led to believe something that's not true.
Exactly. Nothing is black and white. And growing up in a small town in the United States, I grew up just in a big bubble to where I genuinely believed that some places were just inherently dangerous, and that was just what there was to it, you know. But in reality, when you learn more and more and travel more and more, you see that the world is made up of good people for the most part.
And with all that being said, if you have anything, if you want to tell us anything in the comments below, kind of like give us a different viewpoint, open up our eyes to like a different subject or something that we didn't touch on, definitely jump in the comments and let us know. We want to have a conversation about it, and we want other people to be able to see this video and read the comments and also open their mind to different aspects of each country as well.
Exactly.
So hop in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. It really helps us out, and also subscribe to our channel.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
It's free. It's free to subscribe.
Yeah, it doesn't cost you anything, and we would love if you did that, definitely. But thank you all so much for watching.
Cheers, guys.